Hello everybody, welcome to the Sound Test Room. Today we are taking a look at Yonac's Trooper synthesizer. Very good synthesizer this, does lots of things and it's all on one page. So hopefully by the end of this tutorial, you'll know how everything works. I'm just going to play you a classic glide patch that I made just before the video, just to kind of show you the cool stuff you can do. And then we'll get into actually what everything does and how you can program it. It's really straightforward synth and it's capable of some really cool stuff. So let's just play this pad, which I've called Classic Glide Pad. So it took this amount of time, 8.4 seconds, to reach its maximum volume. And then it has a slight sustained decay, and I've got that set up here with the VCA. Now, let's just go in and click on Init. Okay, so now you'll hear that I have a bit of reverb on here because Trooper doesn't have reverb. So I'm just going to just turn that down to a little bit and go back to the synth, because these dry patches sound much better with a bit of reverb. So we have this kind of global master volume, but when we start bringing stuff in like the Spirit and the this is like a massive stacker widener type thing and a texturizer, the volume gets loud pretty quick. And also you have volume control here for the oscillators as well. So we have two oscillators, and then we have an audible LFO, which can also be used as an oscillator. Let's just very quickly go through the kind of differences between the oscillators. The only difference really is that you have an extra waveform in the second oscillator here. So you can see we have this triangle, this saw, and then this kind of shark. And then we have on the second oscillator, we have a triangle, a saw, and then we have a reverse saw. And that's the differences between these. And then on this one, you even have an extra one. You have a sine wave. So this audible LFO can be used as an LFO or an oscillator. So we can go, if we notice here in the octave range, we can go down to low, and then this becomes like an LFO, but you can still bring the volume of that LFO, oscillator LFO in. But let's look, listen. Let's go back to our first oscillator here. And then varying degrees of pulse. Range. This can also go into low. And so can also oscillator 2. And then we have on the oscillator 1, we have a noise. If we turn the volume down, we can just bring the noise in on its own. Double click to reset. Right, so then we have our filters. We have keyboard tracking. So if I turn the filter down really low and play up the top and bring the tracking up, so it's gonna what's gonna happen is the filter is gonna close if I move down the keyboard. Okay, so a little bit of keyboard tracking is probably good. They're very smooth and creamy. Then we have resonance, and it will self-oscillate if we turn down oscillator 1. If we turn tracking full up, we'll have more control, which is how self-resonating filters kind of work. You can tune them up, sort of thing. So let's back that off a little bit and bring in oscillator 1 again. Poly mode, it kind of turns it into mono if it's switched off. Glide is polyphonic. So let's turn that down. Then we have our amount control for our filter envelope here. So let's turn the filter down a little bit here. Let's just boost this volume up a little bit. I'll do it here actually. So if I introduce some attack, you're not going to hear anything, right? Because there's no amount. And you'll see how it decays almost immediately. So let's bring that up. And it's you can have up to 15 seconds of it. 15 seconds. And on the amp envelope as well. So for example, if I do this and have this set really slow, it takes that long to open the filter from where it's set. So let's take that back. So no more sensible here. Then we have a release and we can control the amount here. Let's do something with our amp envelope. Make that a bit more snappy. Okay, LFO, this is the mod wheel LFO. Okay, so if I send LFO to oscillator 1, nothing will happen until I move the mod wheel. And the rate, you can see the mod wheel moving down here now, but I've got up my keyboard, so. And there's the rate. You can also have this set to tracking, right? So what will happen is the lower the keyboard, if I play higher up, it gets faster. And now don't forget you have to have the mod wheel up to use this modulation. But that's what tracking does, okay? Tracking will speed up and slow down the modulation depending on where you are on a keyboard. If you turn it off, it's just where it would be if you normally had a vibrato. Then you have reset. This will reset the LFO every single time. And then we have sync. So see here? And this will sync to the divisions and resolutions of the 120 BPM host tempo, in this case, which is Cubasis. You can also send it to the filter, an oscillator 2 and the audible LFO all at the same time, or you can mix and match, or just the filter. And the tracking works exactly the same whatever you have selected here. So some really nice effects can be achieved with that. Right, let's bring in the audible LFO. So we know that this works basically the same. This is our oscillator 2. And this is a fine tune. So the difference is the noises here, and this is the fine tune between the oscillators 1 and 2. So very slight will give a kind of a chorusing effect. Okay, very cool. And then we have this. So let's turn down oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 in the mix and bring up our audible LFO. Now you'll see it is set at 1. The octave range is set at 1 and tracking is on. So that means it will follow the keyboard. If I switch tracking off, let me play a note, and I switch tracking off. It won't change, right? Or a D. Well, no, I might have to tune it actually, which I can easily do here. So if I play D, okay. So now my audible LFO will be in a D, and if I play so just playing one note now will constantly play a D. So if I play in D minor or D, it's going to work. And if I wanted that to be a C, which I'm guessing is kind of in the middle, yeah. So now whatever notes I play, there'll always be a C in the background. And of course now we can just now the LFO, let's put this back onto track. The LFO part of this works like this, right? I have to assign this modulation to either oscillator 1, oscillator 2, or the filter. Let's assign it to the filter and okay. Take it down to low and it behaves more like an LFO. And we can then see I've turned it off. It's still going to work as an LFO. Okay, we can now send this to oscillator 1. You can hear that. A little bit better if I... But you can still bring it back in if you want to. Let's take it up. Let's send it to oscillator 2 as well. You can get some very cool kind of ring modulating effects. Or take it into LFO range. Okay, very cool. Or, like I said, just put it back into kind of a more audible range, switch this off. And use it as a third oscillator. So it's very cool. You can do all sorts of really interesting stuff. You can also assign this LFO to the audible LFO as well. Right. Okay, VCA. This is kind of self-explanatory. This is your envelope control for your volume. Like I said, it has a really long attack time, 15 seconds. I don't really need to explain envelopes, do I? Just how the sound changes. over time if we take the sustain down. Okay, so won't matter where this is now if it's above the sustain level. A sprit or a sprit, there is no real explanation of what this does. Otherwise, it gives a massive boost in kind of, it sounds like, almost like compression. So let me just drag it up and you can hear what it does. This is where you've got to kind of watch your volumes. So you get that. This is cool. This kind of spreads everything out over the stereo image. So I'll play a chord. It gets considerably louder, so. Okay. Nice, I like that. Let's turn it off for now while we have a look at everything else. Let's give it a bit of a sprit to boost everything. Arpeggiator. Up and down. Random, and as you input note. That's the algorithm. This is the octave. Cool bananas. Texturizer is like a core. It's hard to explain what it is, but just listen to it. So you can back it up with that, but things start to get loud. So let's play around with these controls. Kind of like a chorus buckety brigade delay kind of thing. Use subtly is probably best unless you're creating insanity. Okay, delay. Self-explanatory. It's an echo to delay. Let's change the time. You can have it. Look, you can see up here. If I move this, it's running in milliseconds, but you can sync it to the DAW tempo, and you can have different times each side, and then we can have feedback different for each side. Very good, very good, very good. Let's leave the texturizer now and the get 6 on. Now we have our envelope, and again we can send it to once. It's very simple routing. If we send our, let's switch off number 1 and the audible LFO and oscillator 2. And let's just assign this to 1. So let's give it an amount. This is going to be a pitch envelope, so it's going to adjust. It's going to, if I send it plus, it'll send it up. If I send it down, it'll. Okay. Let's use the attack and the decay, so it goes up and down slowly. In fact, let's have it go quite noticeable. Let's take the sustain level down so it's affecting the decay. So it will attack, decay down to nothing. Awesome. And if we were to turn our sustain off on the amp envelope as well, it would just go, we need to adjust this. And eventually it will go down to nothing. So playing around with the various settings. And if we've got a bit of sustain in there, we're gonna, but it's quite, we can go heavy duty. Let's make the attack a bit faster, eh? And then we can go in the opposite direction as well. And this can also be, let's take it off oscillator. We can apply this to the filter. And our LFO for our mod wheel. So very interesting effects. And then you could combine, I suppose, yes, you could. You could combine a audible LFO. We could leave this down and use it as an LFO, take it down to here. And I've got it on a square wave. So awesome. Of course, it all gets a bit bonkers if we go nuts, you know. It's lovely synth. What's really clever, what's really easy is the fact that it is all on one screen. Now, here's the thing, right? You may have noticed when I was pushing up my mod wheel, right? Let's assign this to number 2 as well. It's drastic, right? If I go all the way up, in fact, we've got some interesting shapes here. So we have various pulses, square, and then a couple of different width of pulse. And then we have this kind of, slow the rate down. In fact, so I can keep my finger on it. Let's whack the sustain on. Again, if I have tracking on it, it's going to get faster and faster. Unless I go really low. So you can achieve some really interesting effects, but let's turn it off. And then you have a smoothing LFO. A smoothing sample and hold random soft. But you see, my mod wheel is pushed up all the way now. Now you can be really clever and just slightly move it, but that if you're playing it becomes really difficult to dial that in kind of on while you're playing really fast or whatever, you know, or you want it more accurate. So if we go into settings, I'll push my mod wheel all the way up, as you can see from down here. Go into settings and go to modulation. This is where you can control various aspects of the synth with various things, and these are saved per patch sort of thing. So if my mod wheel is assigned to a LFO, we know this, right? But if I turn this down to, so I could go nuts, but that would be even worse. Now, if you push your mod wheel all the way up, I think what would be better on this if we go to this and change it to our sine wave. Let's go into our settings. If I go bonkers, now the mod wheel is pushed all the way up, right? Which is more easy for me to, if I'm playing a solo or something and I want to quickly add a vibrato in there or some sort of modulation from the mod wheel, the last thing I want to be doing is trying to find tiny increments in between. I just want to push the thing up and drag it back down. So if this is set maximum, it's the full amount. If it's set at nothing, it's not going to do anything. So we can really dial this in very slightly. And that's at maximum, right? If I push my mod wheel up max, let's go back and adjust the speed. Sorry about that. Now that's a more sensible leak. And I play something like some sort of solo and push the mod wheel all the way up, which is what I'd want to do. It's not going to go out of control. So these mod settings here are really important. You can assign it to the audible LFO. This is your mod wheel, your pitch envelope. We can assign aftertouch to the filter. So if I press harder, to the LFO. So I can, instead of using my mod wheel for the LFO, I can use aftertouch. That's doing a filter there as well, but we could have it slightly set less. Even less than that. Pitch. So there you go. Lots of stuff to control your modulation settings. You have control surfaces. You can do MPE. I haven't got an MPE keyboard, but the stuff you can set up here. MIDI learn, of course. You can just clear all, and then you can hit learn, and then learn any of the parameters on the synth. Okay, so awesome stuff. So there you go, guys. It's a really kind of easy synth to it's an easy synth to learn. It's not, the more you mess with it, the more you'll get really cool stuff out of it, Anyway, listen, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. If you did, drag the like, subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike. It doesn't really make any difference. Please leave a comment, subscribe, become a Patreon or something like that, But yeah, it's really, really easy to make a great patch. It really is. you can make some really interesting stuff very quickly. Let's just do one very, very quickly. Oh, you can hear it better with this. This is sprit. Quite like that. I'm going to turn my reverb up. Don't need that on. Very nice. I like making things with sine waves and triangle waves. I think they sound very, very nice. I'm not done anything with any modulation or anything, and lovely. Yonac Trooper. Brilliant. I love it, I do. I think it's great. Anyway, enough. I'll see you guys later. Ta-da.